Well, hello, folks. I appreciate you joining me here today on Deep River Farm. Let me just give you a brief rundown of what we're going to have in this video. Folks, I can't believe it. You're going to have to watch the whole video to get all of this, but let me just give you a little take on what I'm talking about. Oceanfront property by the elite. The purchase of it has made no sense to me. Miami's not underwater, and the New York Times is now calling it a hoax and a lie. What in the world am I talking about, folks? Well, you're going to have to watch to see what I'm talking about. It's got something to do with the manipulation of our, them sky trails. We've all been misled, misguided, and lied to. And that's come straight out of the New York Times. Well, folks, we're also going in the video, and we'll show you my daughter's banquet and stuff. I hope you bear with me. It's one of them proud dad moments that we just got to do a little bragging on the children, our children and things, and they deserve it for all of the hard work they put in. Folks, that was amazing to sit in and hear all of the specialization that I had no idea they had all these courses. But we had some kids in there that was getting recognized that has been working with NASA on some stuff, and incredible inventions and things, not only with NASA but other things, molecular science, and working on cancer research. And these kids are 20, 21, 22, 23 years old. Just amazing to hear what they've accomplished and things. So but I'm going to show you a little bit about that and some things like that. But folks, the New York Times is now calling it a hoax, a scam, and a lie. So stay tuned, folks, and just bear with me as I have the proud dad moment, and then we're going to get into the meat of it. Well, good evening, folks. I appreciate you joining me here today on Deep River Farm. Boy, we've had a full day. I'm going to tell you what. After that drive up yesterday, getting up at 3:15 in the morning and pulling out at 4 and driving 13 hours by the time we got here, that was after we stopped and ate at Cracker Barrel and got gas twice, and then made another stop, a bathroom break, and then got here. By the time we got unloaded and got everything hauled in, we were about whooped. So we watched a little bit of the news up here to see kind of what was going on in the weather. They was calling for a chance of rain today, but I kept watching how the winds aloft and things was pushing from the beach area here back, and it kept it pushed inland back west. And so we got a few sprinkles. It never really rained. We just got a couple of little sprinklings, which was good, and everything. But after we crashed out last night, I woke up at 4:15, 4:30, somewhere around there, with the birds going to town. And I couldn't go back to sleep, because it was getting daylight, and I'm normally up just right before daylight every day. So I made me a cup of coffee and come down outside and put together the last part of last night's video, and then got ready to go to eat a little breakfast, and then I needed to go get my parents at the airport. They got up at 2 a.m. in the morning and drove up to the airport and was on the flight at 6. you have to be there, 2 hours before to check in. So they did all of that. And so I picked them up at about 10:15 this morning. And then we came back and we got ready, went and changed, went and grabbed a bite to eat at the Tavern by the Sea. Real good little tiny restaurant there right by the bay. And we had codfish sandwiches and salad and pasta salad, and it was really good. And then we come back here to the Airbnb, and we got our attire on. We had to wear sport jackets and ties and all that stuff. And we went to the University of Rhode Island, to the Edwards Hall, where they have a big auditorium, and that's where they presented the Excellence Awards for the people in the top of their class for the entire college in each department and each specialty. So that was what my daughter wanted my parents to come up to especially see, was the awards. She has a 4.0. She's a, I don't know what you call it, saluta. I don't know what you call it. Anyway, she got one of them yellow cords, 4.0. And she got a top award. She was the top award in the English department, and with a 4.0. And she is filling out scholarship paperwork now for the Fulbright scholarship through the United States State Department. So there's a possibility she could get that very prestigious scholarship for next year on top of her other stuff. She was also giving her stuff for her student athlete and all that. And after that, they had a banquet inside the Welcome Center. And I'm gonna show you some of that video and some pictures and things like that, because hey, it's a proud dad moment. And I've got to show all of our friends here on the channel her accomplishments. So I hope I don't bore you with it, but I'm going to show it to you, and that way you can see what we got to see here at the University of Rhode Island. And then she'll graduate on Saturday.
Perhaps a little more coffee than we would say medically is necessary. And in this group, a couple of things to share. I'm a numbers guy, so 73% of them are graduating with more than one major. 33% of you are graduating with 3 or more majors or minors. And 13 of you are the first in your family to earn a college degree, and you did it at the top of your class. Wow. Each of today's award recipients has demonstrated the highest standards of academic excellence. As educators, few moments are more rewarding than celebrating the achievements of our students and the impact they make on our community. We congratulate each of you on this well-earned recognition. You know, these accomplishments did not happen overnight. They were built assignment by assignment, challenge by challenge, through long hours in the classroom and in labs and in internships in the library. And yes, even perhaps a few late nights of wondering if sleep would ever happen again. Through your dedication, you've shown what is possible at URI. You embraced opportunities to learn, to lead, to serve, and to grow, preparing yourselves not only for successful careers, but for lives for purpose and meaning. You know, today we celebrate much more than just academic achievement. It's also the people that were in your lives to make this happen. First, we recognize the family and friends and mentors in the audience. Thank you.
She excelled in graduate level econometrics courses. She worked as a summer research fellow on a project titled Outlier Nation and Fictitious Capital, Updates and New Measures, and has been a wonderful student worker in the Department of Economics. McKinley plans to take a year off from school before pursuing graduate studies. Bravo.
Josie Allred, English. Josie comes to us from Asheboro, North Carolina, and is majoring in English and political science. She's a member of the track and field team, a volunteer coach with Run Your City Kingston, a nonprofit that engages youth through sports, an undergraduate teaching assistant, and a speaker for the Chris Collins Foundation. In 2025, she won the first place prize in the English Department Critical Essay Contest and has been awarded both the Beverly Swan and Nancy Potter scholarships. This summer, Josie will teach English in rural Vietnam before pursuing her master's in international relations back here in Rhode. Congratulations.
Lainey Sumner. Lainey has produced and worked on 17 short films while at URI. On film crews, she is the student who everyone goes to for help. She has worked professionally as a script supervisor and was a day player for the Real Housewives of Rhode Island. Lainey has also served as a production assistant on commercials for Gnarly Bay and Wait Like Studios.
So folks, now we can use the term that Paul Harvey made famous for this, and that is, now you know the rest of the story. Ain't that something, folks? All this time and all these years they've been pouring money into a hoax, and we've been paying out the yin yang for this hoax. And look at all of the stuff they've done, trying to force all of these, I guess you'd call made up policies and things, and been pouring money into all this stuff. And there's just been some people getting real rich off of it. A lot of people getting rich off of the scam. Well, good evening, folks. I appreciate you joining me here today on Deep River Farm. Got something we wanted to talk about outside of coming up to Rhode Island to see my daughter graduate and get her excellence awards and stuff. And that is this. Oh, for half a century, I'd say. It might not be quite that long, but I'm going to be pretty close with that assumption that, anyway, we've had experts, teachers, politicians, activists, all lecturing us on how the CC. Now, if you're new to the channel, we're going to talk in the phonetic alphabet so you can understand, because this subject is very sensitive to those that actually believe in it. So we're going to get your pen and paper out. First letter of the phonetic alphabet. Here we go. We've been being lectured about Charlie, Lima, Indigo, Mike, Alpha, Tango, Echo, and then you add the word change onto it, that it is going to destroy the planet this week. It's going to flood, the beach levels are going to rise, all that garbage. And of all places, folks, the New York Times says alarmism is finally cooling down. The blue side do not have to campaign on the CC anymore. They blared this headline this week as the author argues the voters are rather turned off by the subject now. I would like to suggest that this is because it is the single most expensive lie. This is a quote here. The single most expensive lie in human history. And ain't we been saying that, folks? Who else has been saying that? The blue side been calling the orange man out on it, and he's been saying that it was a hoax the whole time. And this is something we've been saying because it's a big joke, and all these people falling for it, getting all these wind turbines and solar panels and electric vehicles and all that good stuff. That stuff may have a place later, but the technology's just not there for any of that. I mean, my goodness, a solar farm only gets about 15% of capability out of it. So all this money is spent to get all of this power, and it's only 15% usable. Not the power, not the panels, but reliability. 15%, because look above, folks, look. You see that? Solar panels are not viable when it's like this. And they say, well, if you can hold your hand over yourself and create a shadow, you can get sunburnt. Well, it don't work that way with the solar panel, folks. And then you got to consider in the winter, you got snow and all this kind of stuff that lie on the panels. You can't get any penetration from the sun. Not to mention how bad they are for the environment. They have cadmium in them. They have all kinds of other, they have PFAS in them when the panels break and water runs on them and they leak. They got PFAS chemicals. Those are forever chemicals. You don't hear any about that stuff. You don't hear nothing about all this, how bad it is for the environment for these things. So in elementary, folks, you remember we endured warnings of a coming ice age. And then by high school, it was, well, in the very beginning, they talked about the ice age, and then they called it acid rain. And then they called it the CC. No, global warming, that's what it was, global warming. And that we was minutes away from ending humanity. By the time we were adults, the warming had failed, surprisingly never occurred, and we settled now on the word CC as a vague name for the inevitable apocalypse. The sea is going to rise. But the thing I keep saying, folks, is if they all believed in this themselves, they would not have oceanfront properties at Martha Vineyard and all these other high-dollar locations, because they would be afraid that their investment was going to be wiped away. So why would they have oceanfront property? And just in case nobody's aware, Miami is not underwater. It's not just the expense of the CC alarmist. It is what has been kept from us that they haven't been doing as well. How much would a gallon of gas cost today had we not been drilling for oil all this time, instead of pretending the emergency meant we all had to switch to electric cars by next Tuesday? This is a quote straight from the New York Times, folks. With precious few exceptions, every single thing in our lives has been made much more expensive by the cult of the CC and its constant lamentations about the end days. Entire generations of our youth have been terrorized just as their parents were by nuclear bomb drills, into thinking that they may be the last humans to ever live. This is a quote, folks, straight out of the New York Times. We have all seen the reports of the young adults who say they don't want to have kids because they expect the world to end. It's ridiculous. Travel sports might be a plausible reason to avoid having children, but the CC is not. Now, finally, after 50 years of hysteria, the New York Times, the very gray lady with her hair on fire over the CC this whole time, tells us it's not such a big deal after all. Ain't that something, folks? They finally admitting that there's nothing to it. Now, let me tell you a little something else. Here's what else is funny. You remember that Greta Thunberg from Switzerland, whose entire existence, it seemed, was predicted upon burying and berating us for destroying the planet, has moved on to Radical, Indigo, Sierra, Lima, Alpha, Mike. I can't even say that word. That will be sent, may be pulled off for saying that. But she's moved on to that religion and traded in her Birkenstocks for whatever you call that thing that they have. Can't say that either. You get immediately pulled and flagged. Say what you will, but as an apocalyptic hoax, the alarmism has already had an absolutely historic run. Overpopulation nonsense had a few years in the 60s, but nothing compared to the decades of pure insanity that we have lived through, thanks to Al Gore, his unhinged predictions. And then he got how many people to fall for that? That was his wealthy buddies and stuff that spent all this money and all this garbage and wasted all their breath talking about something that is now, according to the New York Times, not me, but I'll agree 100% with them, a hoax. Now, you know, everybody wants to be a good steward of the earth and everything. Littering is bad, but these performative nonsense like paper straws that melt in your cocktail drink or cars that shut themselves off every 10 seconds are meaningless gestures. And it's expensive, meaningless gestures. Top it all off, folks, just think about all of the amount of time that's been wasted by these people blocking the streets and walking around with signs and all these lectures and all this stuff they've participated in. Look at all of the charges they've endured for disorderly conduct and obstruction and blocking traffic and all this, all the wasted time of paperwork and the arrest records and all this stuff that they've done, and to accomplish and be a part of nothing, a hoax, a lie. And of course, we know most of these protesters are paid anyway. But look at all the time that they've wasted and fell for the fabrication of the big lie. See, we've always known that cheap energy is the doorway out of poverty, but it's a poison to the alarmist, for the CC alarmist. This battle became a religious, secular cult for some. It left us with taxes instead of tithing and environmental slogans instead of prayers. It was a scientific issue, but a moral one. If you failed to join in the hysteria, then you were a bad person and they wanted to cancel you. Nothing about the American CC or attitudes towards it have ever made any sense. We tighten our belts and pay through the nose to keep our emissions low, while the rest of the world, we've been saying this, basically fires huge carbon cannons right up into the sky. That would be your India, that would be China, that would be all these other locations that have all these big textiles. And you know, I've always thought it was nonsense that we had all these stupid regulations, and they was trying to put all these cars and all these charging stations and all this stuff up. And look, they spent what, $8 or $9 billion to create an infrastructure for charging cars, and they put in 9 charging stations with $9 billion allocated to it. Ain't that something with your tax dollars? Well, who got the other $9 billion, and where did they go? They need to audit that, see where that money went and whose pocket it went in. But that's the whole thing here. Now, the New York Times has finally come out and added all this. It is time for the madness to end. We do not need to saddle our children with emotional and economic damage of make-believe climate disasters. Ain't that something? Now, if they want to do something about all these disasters, they need to stop this stuff right here from being created with all this streaking in the skies with these sky trails. That is why we've been saying all this spraying has been so necessary to try to create the narrative for the CC. But now, folks, the New York Times has come out and called it a hoax. I appreciate you joining me here today on Deep River Farm. I hope you have a blessed day. We'll see you on the next video.